I would usually call you Congressman. However, I knew you before you were a congressman. And I like to sometimes explain to people, like, how does it end up that Garret Graves is my friend that I'm calling up to talk about politics? But so just so everyone knows, Garret and I used to work on Capitol Hill before he ran for Congress and before I went on my way and then eventually went to the White House. His congressman was Billy Towson, and my congressman was Dan Schaefer, and they were very, very good friends. And that was back in the day when you had a lot of, well, I guess you still have good Republican and Democrat friendships, but there seemed to be a lot more cooperation then, and our offices got along very well. And so that's how I first got to know you, and it's great to have you on the podcast. Thanks for joining.
Hey, thank you, and it's great to be with you today.
Thank you so much. Okay, so you were a Republican member of Congress for quite a while, so I'm sure you're watching all of this. And when you think about DOGE and the Department of Government Efficiency, the speed at which it's moving, sometimes I think in some cases I'm like, whoa. My grandmother always said, that old saying, measure twice and cut once. I'm not exactly sure that is what's happening in the haste to get this done. But I'm sure, just knowing you, that this is probably something that you probably wanted to do for a while as well, which is to cut government spending and get everybody back on track.
Absolutely, Dana. And I think you kind of have to look at the context in which this is happening. Look, we went through the last Congress where we had a Democrat majority in the Senate, we had a Democrat White House, and only a Republican majority in the House. And so in a situation like that, you have to look at the incremental wins. What can you get? And take those 2 and 3 and 4 yard gains and call it a win. Right now, President Trump ran on transformational change. And you have to do an honest assessment of the United States. And just to throw out one little factoid, if we are borrowing money, the rate that we're borrowing money right now, for every $1 we borrow, about 50 cents of it is going to go to cover debt service or go back into covering our debt.
And that's something that a friend of mine, I'm sure you probably know him too, Neil Ferguson. He has the Ferguson's law, which is as soon as that starts to happen, where you have over half of your money going to service your debt, your country will fail.
There is no question that is the trajectory that we're on. And Dana, putting the perspective of a business, if we were a business, we would have gone bankrupt and shut down years and years ago, decades ago. So is this a little rough? Yeah, it is. Is it imperfect? Yes. But you have to look at it within the context of the urgency we're facing. And this is exactly what needs to happen. Let me say it again. Are they going to get everything perfect, like your grandmother says? No, they're not going to. But the urgency we're facing right now, they've got to come in and do this. We're operating off of a 1950s government organizational structure for 2025. It doesn't make sense. This is a turnaround in a bankrupt company. That's what we need to look at this like. We have someone, Elon Musk, who has been very successful in business. Does it mean we give him carte blanche, that we don't look over his shoulder? No. But this is absolutely the aggressive effort that needs to happen. We are on an unsustainable financial trajectory. Is there going to be pain? Yeah, there's going to be pain. We're going to have to make change. But what you've got to look at it as, the pain that we may be facing by cutting some programs today, or the pain that we are heaping upon our children and grandchildren with the unsustainable debt that we're facing right now.
We just talked about, well, we didn't have him on, but he was on. This is Monday, February 17th. It's President's Day. We had a show where Lee Zeldin, the new EPA administrator, I'm sure you probably knew him when you were on Capitol Hill. Of course, you served together. So one of the things he found last week was $20 billion in savings that he could make right away, because some of these programs that the Bidens try to basically get in under the deadline before they were gone, it just like, it was for climate for Palestine and things like that. And it is kind of shocking for American taxpayers who knew that the government was inefficient. But to have a spotlight shown on something like that can really irk you.
And Dana, everybody, every person in this country, every member of Congress has needs, has projects in their district that are high priorities. And to see tens of billions of dollars, Lee Zeldin is fantastic, good friend. And I'm confident that the research that he's done is right on track. He's identified these dollars that were being shoveled out the door irresponsibly. And again, what could you do with $20 billion in your community? How would $20 billion impact
or just not
reducing the
spending?
deficit of debt? Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Like
Right.
maybe as you to the
That's
point
right.
about the budget. I am wondering about something though, because the USAID funding, for example, some of it used to go to farmers in America, right? So there are some members of Congress from both sides of the aisle saying, wait. You don't want to hurt the farmers, do you? Don't cut that money. And then you had a couple of senators say, wait, you can't take the health funding. You can't take away NIH funding. And oh wait, what about the National Endowment for Democracy? It's so important. We can't cut. And then so you even have some Republicans going, wait, not my program. And that's been a problem since you and I first started on Capitol Hill way back when. Do you think that the Trump political machine is strong enough, and I tend to think so, that even those members of Congress will have to back down?
I think that what they're doing right now is sort of like a stress test, cutting everything off and figuring out where you have real problems emerge. People are afraid of change, and you obviously have these institutionalists, these bureaucrats within the agencies. But wait a minute, I've been running this program for 20 years. We can't stop it. That doesn't mean that it's worthy of federal taxpayer dollars. And that this is something that's really important. There are a lot of missions, there are a lot of programs around the United States and around the world that have merit. It doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be funded with U.S. taxpayer dollars. Do I believe that some of these projects and programs that have been shut down are going to be restored? I do. I absolutely do. Are all of them? No, they're not going to, nor should they. All we've done, and look, in my time, either working as a staffer in Congress or serving in Congress, it is incredibly rare that we deauthorize or defund a program. All we do, if we have a better idea, is we heap a new program on top without ever looking at the efficacy or performance of the old programs. How great is it that we have a technologist like Elon Musk coming in, being able to apply things like AI and looking at the performance or efficacy of federal programs and deciding, number one, is this something that should be a federal program, a federal taxpayer obligation? And number two, is it actually advancing the ball, progressing? Is it an efficient use of dollars, or is there an alternative way where we can get this done?
So let me add to that, because the other thing we talked about today is that Sheryl Crow, great performer, right? So she has decided to sell her Tesla. She no longer wants to drive a Tesla in protest of Elon Musk. And she donated the money to something she thinks is going to get cut. And that was to NPR. And Brendan Carr is President Bush's FCC chairman. And he said, great, you're proving our point that NPR could be funded by donations, as it largely is. It gets a little bit of federal funding, not a ton in terms of its overall budget. But he was making the point that you might love NPR, and that's great. But that doesn't mean federal taxpayer dollars need to go to it. I think that's a good way of looking at things.
It's a great way of looking at things. Look, my wife donates to our local public radio station at home. I donate to our local Christian station at home. They're models where if something has value, then you can contribute. Why do we need to be federally funding some of these programs that absolutely have a private market that could be viable without the public tax dollars? Brennan is exactly right. He is going to be revolutionary in the FCC.
He's so good. I have a funny story. I have known him for a long time, so I've had his number in my phone. I haven't said this out loud yet. And so, like, he's somebody that I might have on the show one day, right? He's a friend like that. Yeah. So his name is Brendan Carr, and my producer on the 5 is Brendan Coors.
Oh, wow.
And one of the things I have to do every day is organize with Brendan Coors what my one more thing is going to be on the 5. And several times in the last 8 weeks, I've meant to send something to Brendan Coors, but sent it to Brendan Carr. And my assistant, the other day, I copied her on it, and she wrote back, she goes, Dana, stop texting the FCC commissioner your one more thing ideas. He doesn't need the cat videos and the cute dog videos. And so I keep making that mistake.
Which one does a better job in responding to you?
I said I was sorry, and the FCC commissioner said, no, I love being in the loop. What are we doing today? Yeah, it's very funny. He's a great guy. And his wife's a super accomplished attorney as well.
She is amazing. Works
Amazing. I
closely with
know.
her.
I think he married up, but I don't know if I would tell him that. The other thing before we take a quick break is I wanted to ask you about President Trump's idea. And sometimes I never know if he's serious about wanting to actually eliminate FEMA or if it's just a way to say we have to rethink how FEMA operates because it's not as efficient as it could be, and it's not getting the help to the people who need it the most for things like Hurricane Helene or the floods from this morning, the fires out in California. And I know that you know a lot about dealing with FEMA. Do you have an idea on how that could be reformed or what he's thinking about?
Absolutely. So one, look, in the aftermath of a disaster, you have to keep in mind this means you have victims. This means you have American citizens that are in an awful situation, and we've got to have the government being able to quickly come in and respond. Do I think that FEMA needs to be fundamentally changed? Yes, I think they're right on track. FEMA actually re-victimizes these disaster victims because they're not efficient. They're an alphabet soup bureaucracy. They're not able to quickly get money out the door. And this is something people don't think about. FEMA deploys these armies of FEMA employees out there, which means they're taking up hotel rooms and taking up food that needs to be available for disaster victims. It's not the right model. This is one of the many things that I'm really glad that they're focused upon. And let's be clear, it's not to take away the capacity. It's to find a more efficient way of actually doing it, which means better, faster, cheaper, which is in the best interest of folks that are paying for it, and it's in the best interest of people that need it.